Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Monday, February 9th, 2026. And if you're anything like me, you are probably nursing a bit of a cultural hangover this morning. And I don't just mean from the nachos or the fact that the Seattle Seahawks actually pulled off that win yesterday.
It was a chaotic Sunday, to say the least.
Chaotic is exactly the right word because, usually the morning after the Super Bowl, we're all talking about the same three things. The game, the commercials, and the halftime show.
Right.
But this year feels different. It feels like we just watched two completely different events happen at the exact same time.
We effectively did. I mean, while millions of people were tuned into the broadcast watching Bad Bunny headline the official NFL show, there was this massive coordinated counter-event happening entirely online.
Right, the All-American halftime show.
Exactly. Hosted by Turning Point USA, headlined by Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Brice. And if you look at the numbers and the discourse this morning, this was not just some fringe protest.
Well,
this was a legitimate cultural split screen.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We aren't here to critique the set lists or argue about which show was better.
Sure.
We are here to look at the machine that made that counter event possible. Because, as all the sources point out, this event wasn't just a concert. It was really a testament to the enduring influence of Charlie Kirk.
That's the ghost in the machine here.
Right.
We're less than 6 months out from his assassination in Utah, yet the infrastructure he built didn't just survive him. It mobilized millions of people to actively tune out the biggest cultural event in America.
That is such a staggering thought.
Yeah.
Usually when a charismatic founder dies, the movement just fractures or fades.
Yeah.
This seems to have done the opposite.
Completely.
So today we're going to unpack this tale of two halftimes, including the absolute chaos involving Elon Musk and the streaming platform. Then we're going to pivot to the architect himself. How did a college dropout build a movement strong enough to rival the Super Bowl? And what is the legacy he left behind?
It's a massive story. So let's start with the immediate context, the duel for the remote control.
Okay, let's set the stage. On one side, you have the NFL. They pick Bad Bunny. Global superstar, massive streaming numbers, appeals to a younger, very diverse demographic.
Right. On paper, for a corporate giant like the NFL, this is a home run.
A total home run. But for a specific slice of the American right, it was interpreted as a direct provocation.
The sources are pretty clear that the backlash started the minute the announcement was made. It wasn't just, I don't like this music. It was framed as an attack on American culture.
The sources mention critics citing border cultural symbolism and getting really worked up about the lyrics being primarily in Spanish.
Right. And Bad Bunny, to his credit, didn't exactly try to de-escalate that. Remember back in October?
Oh, yeah.
He explicitly joked that if people didn't understand him, they had 4 months to learn Spanish.
Which is a pretty funny line, but I imagine it did not play well with the demographic that was already skeptical.
It was pouring gasoline on the fire. So, Turning Point USA sees this alienation, and they just capitalize on it. They pitch their alternative not just as a concert, but as a kind of safe harbor.
A celebration of faith, family, and freedom.
That was the marketing. Exactly.
And Kid Rock was the perfect frontman for that.
He really was. He gave an interview leading up to the event where he framed it as this sort of David versus Goliath battle. He said, Bad Bunny, said he's having a dance party. We plan to play great songs for folks who love America.
Wow. That is such a fascinating rhetorical trick.
Isn't it?
It creates a binary. You can have the dance party, or you can love America.
Yeah.
You can't do both.
Exactly. It forces the audience to pick a side. But here is where the story gets really interesting from a, nuts and bolts perspective. They hyped this thing up as a massive streaming event on X, formerly Twitter. Elon Musk is boosting it. Everyone is ready. And then
the tech fail. I was watching my timeline when this happened. It was absolute chaos. What exactly went wrong?
It was a collision between ideology and legal reality. The show is supposed to stream exclusively on X.
Right.
But at 6:00 p.m. Eastern, just 2 hours before showtime, Turning Point had to issue an emergency update. They couldn't stream on X due to licensing restrictions.
Wait. So the platform that brands itself as the bastion of free speech couldn't host the speech because of Copyright law.
Essentially, yes. YouTube and other platforms have spent 20 years building these incredibly complex back-end systems to handle global music licensing and royalties.
Sure.
X simply doesn't have that infrastructure fully matured yet, so hosting a live concert with all that copyrighted music is just a legal minefield.
So minutes before the biggest event in their history, they have to pivot.
They had to funnel everyone to YouTube, Rumble, and networks like TBN and Real America's Voice. In the world of live broadcasting, that is usually a death sentence.
You lose your whole audience in the shuffle.
You do, but they didn't.
No, they didn't.
And this is the surprising fact that really highlights the strength of this whole movement. Despite all that platform confusion, the YouTube stream alone peaked at roughly 5.2 million concurrent viewers.
5.2 million concurrents on a Sunday night.
On a Sunday night against the Super Bowl. And total views were estimated at over 12 million by the end of the game.
That is wild. That's bigger than most awards shows.
It is. And the content was exactly what that audience was hungry for. It opened with an electric guitar, Star-Spangled Banner.
Of course.
Kid Rock played Bowie Daba, which has become a sort of anthem for this crowd, and he covered Cody Johnson's Till You Can't.
But the emotional peak wasn't the music, was it? It was the tribute.
Correct. The finale was a visual tribute to Charlie Kirk. And that shifted the entire energy from a counter concert to something more like a political rally or maybe even a religious revival.
And that brings us to the man himself. Because you can't understand why 12 million people would tune into this without understanding who Charlie Kirk was. And looking at his bio, it really is the blueprint for modern polarization.
It is. I mean, he was only 31 when he was killed last year. But his rise was just meteoric.
Let's go back to the beginning. Where does a guy like this come from?
He was born in the Chicago suburbs, Eagle Scout.
Yeah?
Grew up in a standard, moderate Republican household. But the origin story, the moment that really set his path, it revolves around West Point.
I've heard this story. He claimed he was rejected, right?
Yes. He applied to the United States Military Academy. He didn't get in. But the way he told that story is crucial. He claimed he was rejected in favor of a candidate of a, quote, different gender and a different persuasion who was far less qualified.
So he framed it immediately as being a victim of affirmative action.
Exactly. He used it as proof that the system was rigged against meritocracy. Now, we do have to note, the reporting on this is a little shaky.
Okay.
Later in his career, when journalists pressed for details, he sometimes claimed he was being sarcastic, or that he was just repeating what others had told him.
So the facts might be dubious, but the feeling of that rejection is what fueled him.
Precisely. It gave him a personal grievance. He skipped traditional college. At 18 years old, he meets Bill Montgomery, and they start Turning Point USA in a garage in 2012.
And originally, this wasn't about the culture wars, was it? It was more economic?
Not really, no. In 2012, it was standard fiscal conservatism. Big government sucks. That was the slogan.
Right.
They wanted to rival liberal groups like Move On. They were talking about free markets, low taxes, deregulation.
But somewhere along the line, low taxes just stopped being enough.
Well, Kirk realized that fiscal policy is boring to young people. You don't go viral explaining marginal tax rates.
Yeah.
You go viral by fighting the culture war. So he pivoted. He became the youth whisperer of the Man-GA movement.
This is where we start seeing things like the Professor Watch List.
Right. A database monitoring academics they deemed radical or anti-American. He launched the You're Being Brainwashed campus tours, and then those Prove Me Wrong debates where he'd set up a table and just debate unprepared college freshmen.
Those clips were absolute catnip for social media algorithms.
And they were incredibly lucrative. By 2020, TPUSA had nearly $40 million in revenue. Kirk's personal wealth exploded properties in Arizona or Florida. He built a media empire that could rival cable news.
But as the money grew, the ideology shifted too. And this is the part that I think really explains the halftime show's faith angle. Kirk didn't stay a secular small government guy.
No, this is probably the most critical evolution. He started out supporting the separation of church and state. In 2018, he's on record defending it. But by 2022, he called the separation of church and state a fabrication. He shifted toward hardline Christian nationalism.
What drove that change?
He became heavily influenced by figures like Pastor Rob McCoy and adopted something called the Seven Mountain Mandate.
Okay, let's unpack that. I see that term Seven Mountain Mandate pop up in the sources. What does it actually mean?
It's a dominionist theology. The core idea is that Christians are divinely mandated to conquer and dominate 7 key spheres of society. These are the mountains: government, media, education, business, family, religion, and this is the key one for us, arts and entertainment.
Ah, okay. So when they put on a halftime show.
They aren't just putting on a concert. Under this worldview, they are engaging in spiritual warfare for the mountain of arts and entertainment.
They're trying to reclaim that territory from secular forces.
That context changes everything. It's not just we like country music, it's we are taking back the culture.
Wow.
And this theological shift coincided with much darker, more aggressive rhetoric across the board. If we look at the last few years of his life, the controversies just piled up.
Let's go through some of those because the sources are pretty explicit.
Yeah, and we have to report these impartially to really understand the polarization he generated. On race, for example, he moved way past colorblindness. He began attacking the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
A foundational civil rights law.
He called it a huge mistake and an anti-white weapon. He attacked Martin Luther King Jr., calling him awful and a myth. He was a major promoter of the Great Replacement theory.
The idea that there is a plot to replace white voters with immigrants.
Exactly. And there was that specific comment about pilots that I remember seeing everywhere.
Yes, on his show, he said, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
He was explicitly linking diversity to danger.
And it wasn't just race. His rhetoric on LGBTQ issues hardened significantly, too.
It became total opposition. He went from being relatively dismissive to calling for a ban on gender-affirming care and suggesting Nuremberg-style trials for doctors who perform those procedures.
Oh.
He called transgenderism a lie and an abomination.
And then, of course, there's the disinformation ecosystem, COVID, the election.
He was a central hub for all of it. He called mask mandates medical apartheid. He questioned the death tolls. And regarding the 2020 election, he was instrumental in Stop the Steal. There was that famous deleted tweet where he claimed to be sending 80 buses to the January 6th rally.
He later walked that back, didn't he?
He clarified it was actually 7 buses, not 80. But the intent was clear, using his infrastructure to mobilize people based on these claims of election fraud.
One thing that stood out to me in the research, especially given his Christian nationalist turn, was his relationship with Israel. You'd think it would be lockstep support.
It was complicated. Publicly, yes, staunchly pro-Israel, citing biblical land rights.
Lies.
But the sources reveal leaked text messages where he expressed deep frustration with Jewish donors. He said he felt bullied by them. He even floated conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent.
So it paints a picture of someone who was trying to ride a lot of different tigers at once. The religious right, the conspiratorial fringe, the big money donors.
And he managed to keep it all together until September 10, 2025.
The assassination.
It happened in Orem, Utah Valley University. He was there for a debate, the kind of event he'd done 1,000 times before.
And he was shot on stage.
A sniper shot to the neck. The shooter was identified as a 22-year-old named Tyler James Robinson. Kirk died at the hospital. He was 31.
I remember the shock of that day. It felt like the whole country just held its breath. But looking back now from 2026, his death didn't dismantle the movement.
If anything, it solidified it. This is what the sources call the martyr narrative. His death elevated him to a nearly saint-like status on the right.
Right.
You had vigils attended by RFK Jr., by Trump officials. You had that massive memorial service at State Farm Stadium, nearly 100,000 people.
And posthumously, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Trump in October of 2025.
Which legitimized his legacy at the highest level. But there was a darker ripple effect in the immediate aftermath. The sources describe a woke right phenomenon.
Woke right. That sounds like a contradiction in terms.
It does, but it describes a tactic. For years, Kirk railed against cancel culture. But after his death, his followers employed this massive, coordinated cancellation campaign against anyone who criticized him or minimized the tragedy.
So we're talking about people losing their jobs.
Yes. Over 100 people, teachers, doctors, first responders, were investigated, fired, or doxxed for comments they made online about his death.
And the most famous example was Jimmy Kimmel.
Exactly. His show was suspended. He made a monologue joke that touched on the polarization around the assassination, and the backlash from the TPUSA network was so severe that the network pulled him off the air.
It proved that the machine had teeth. It wasn't just an online club anymore. It could actually impact your livelihood.
Which brings us full circle to yesterday, the Super Bowl.
The ultimate test of that machine.
Exactly. You have the NFL, this massive mainstream Goliath doing its thing with Bad Bunny.
Right.
And then you have the machine Charlie Kirk built, Turning Point USA, pulling 12 million people away to watch Kid Rock on YouTube.
It feels like the final proof of concept. Kirk didn't just want to critique the mainstream media, he wanted to replace it.
And the All-American Halftime Show proved that the replacement is functional, it's well-funded, it's organized, and it's massive. They have built a parallel ecosystem.
A parallel reality.
They have their own news, their own schools, their own dating apps, and now their own Super Bowl halftime show.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about a concert you might not have even watched?
It matters because it signals a fundamental shift in what it means to be American. The Super Bowl used to be the last thing that we all did together.
It was the last campfire we all gathered around.
Even if we were just there for the snacks.
Exactly.
Right. But now, even that is bifurcated. We are looking at a future where Americans don't just vote differently. We inhabit entirely different realities. We consume different facts, different entertainment, different histories.
It feels like we are drifting into a future where we might not share any cultural moments anymore.
That is the trajectory. If 12 million people are willing to tune out the biggest unifying event in the country to watch a political counterprogram, the divide isn't just about policy, it's existential.
We are living in two different countries that just happen to occupy the same map.
That is a heavy thought to end on. The idea that the United States is becoming a geographic formality rather than a cultural reality.
It's the reality the data is showing us.
Yeah.
The halftime culture war wasn't just a glitch. It's the new normal.
Well, on that note, we want to hear from you. Did you watch Bad Bunny? Did you watch Kid Rock? Or did you just turn off the TV at halftime and stare at the wall in silence?
Or maybe you just watch the football.
Imagine that. Watching the Super Bowl for the football.
What a radical concept. Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.